This is You're Probably Right. Entertainment first, everything else is just bonus. Opinions, all ours. Sometimes backed by research, but never the final word. There are always exceptions, so take it with a grain of salt and a slight dusting of chili powder.
Hey, how you doing, y'all? So, this is the third episode of this. Again, I still don't know if I'm going to use this title, but for now, it is the match made in hell, and this is profiling the first person, the main person that we were actually whose life we were actually looking at. But in the last episode, we did the second person, which was the person who is more vague. This person that we will be profiling today is the more invested, the interpretive, meaning driven person. So, generally, when you're the more invested person, we would generally call you the loser in the deal. But not trying to be evil, guys. I'm just saying that generally, when it comes to who feels the loss more, usually this person. Hence, they're more invested. Obviously, if there was a losing situation, obviously, one side, two side, and one invested more, but both people technically lost, obviously, who invested more lost more. There you go. So that's what I meant. It's just the way I said it, it sounded kind of messed up. So, did it clear that up? Okay, so what makes this person different from somebody with an ordinary breakup, or who's usually within a normal breakup, is that they are not only grieving loss, they are trying to solve contradiction that changes everything for them. So, again, this is usually the person who, out of the situation, lost a bit of themselves. Could have lost some other stuff too. They might even be sorely bitter about it. They feel like they're tricked, duped, played, disrespected. So if that's you, keep listening. The traits, and this one's obviously going to be a lot more elaborate than the other side for obvious reasons. I'm just doing my best on both sides, y'all. First, they are meaning driven. They do not just react to events, they interpret them. They build internal structures from tone, timing, gestures, body language, confiding, effort, withdrawal, and inconsistency. They are not casual with emotional data. They study it. Second, they are probably high in narrative processing. You see, they keep replaying the timeline, looking for the turning point. They do not simply say it ended, right? They ask, why did it change? Why did it change? When did it change? What did that moment right there mean? What did that look like? Or what was that like? Or what was that look like? What did that silence mean? And their suffering is partly emotional, but partly investigative. They want to know. Third, they appear highly susceptible to ambiguous reinforcement. So when you're like, it's being here, but we just don't know what it is. They're highly susceptible to being like just being floored by that. um, Clean rejection would wound them, right? But vagueness traps them harder. This type of person can survive pain better than uncertainty. Uncertainty recruits them. It gives their mind a job. That's where this person's mind goes into. Why are things uncertain? How can I piece them together? Why did they go wrong? And that job becomes obsessional without necessarily being a true obsession, or in the clinical sense, but they become obsessed. Fourth, they likely have a strong rescuing or redeeming interest. They like to save people, not necessarily because they want to, save everyone, but because once they sense hidden depth, hidden pain, hidden complexity, they start feeling that persistence, that, patience and understanding might eventually unlock something real in a person. They don't just want the person. See, that's the thing. And from the outside and in movies, it means like, oh, they just want the person. They're just all over them. They just want them. But no, they want the emotional truth behind that person. They think that this usually shallow person is way more deep than they let on. I don't know why. I will say we tend to feel that way, but for some reason, maybe it's because you just can't believe that someone can be that shallow. If you understand what I'm saying, it's like the person is so shallow that they're deep, and they're the deepest person they've ever met, because no one could be that shallow. They must be just hiding it. And for some reason, it's your job to search that out and find out what's really there, because maybe you can get to the depth that no one else can. Meanwhile, this person thrives on being shallow, and for some reason, it turns this person on, I guess, in some way, flicks a switch or something. Because once intimacy starts, right, this person that we're speaking about, this totally invested or overly invested person, this person does not just attach to the pleasure in the situation, they attach to the meaning in process. So, and some type of implied future. Um, Whereas, the other person might be fully in the moment. So when a person who is shallow, right, is fully in the moment, because there's not much stuff behind them, is the best. And I'm not trying to be offensive, so please forgive me if I am, but um, check me if I'm wrong. But this person is so shallow that it's like there has to be something deeper. So as I said, the intimacy starts. This person does not just attach to the vague person with just about the pleasure. They attach to the meaning and process. So as I said, when the vague person gives them this look, that look is the reflection that the more invested person sees. But what they see is a reflection of themselves. So when that person looks at them like that, the shallow person looks at them the way the invested person feels. And if you get what I just said, then that should be very, very mind-blowing. The look, again, and it doesn't have to just be a look, but because the vague person can be so attached in the moment, that the looks that they give this invested person looks like how the invested person feels inside. And they don't usually get that from everybody. And that's where there's a trick in there. One way or the other, there's a trick. Either the person knows that they have this gift and they do it, or the person is like that, and so they're just being themselves. So the invested person, they do not experience, say, sexual or emotional invitation as a moment only, even if that entirely is what, say, the vague person is offering. It doesn't look that way. They tend to experience it as evidence. The invested person sees it as evidence of love, evidence of care. And that is why when the person withdraws from them, it destabilizes them so badly. It doesn't only remove the present. You see, when the person withdraws, it's like they're literally just gone, right? Oh, I wanted to do so much more. I wanted to talk so much more. I wanted to hang out so much more. And it's all of a sudden just pulled away. So it contaminates the the interpretation of the past of what actually happens. It sullies it, it dirties it. So psychologically, this person is probably caught in a 4-part loop. This is the person, the invested person is caught in a 4-part loop. And the 4 parts are invitation, contradiction, shame, and repair. So, invitation. The invitation from the vague person creates hope. The contradiction creates mental pursuit. The shame of it all creates urgency. And the repair creates overinvestment. So the fact that they're trying to repair things, it causes them to overinvest because honestly, in fact, they're not at fault. Yeah. And that is the real mechanism. Hopefully you're getting where I'm going with this thing. Hopefully it's getting better as I go. um, the script strongly, well, suggests that this person is this suggests a person whose attachment became fused with self-worth. So however the attachment to that person somehow has their self-worth kind of tied to it somehow. And once there were moments of embarrassment, added to everything, it dropped on insecurity, not clarity, or unequal response. The attachment stopped being just about desire. It became an attachment to restore internal balance within themselves. And that's why you'd hear them say, just one more time. It's like a drug. And that is why gifts, patience, effort, and repeated attempts at clarity become so loaded. They are not only expressions of care, they are attempts to reverse this diminishment, the disrespect. They're trying to fix it. They're trying to get back some self-respect, and the other person knows that they took it and they don't care. And that is a very important insight about this subject, really. You see, this person likely hates feeling foolish more than they hate feeling rejected. Rejection happens all the time. Rejected off a basketball team, rejected from a girl that maybe the person asked out, or the guy asked out, whatever it is. That means one of the deepest injuries is not, you did not choose me. It's like, well, I never thought I was perfect in the first place. It's, You let me invest under conditions that later made me feel naive. That humiliation is what keeps the loop alive. They want more moments, not only because they miss the person, but because they want retroactive proof that they were not stupid to believe, although they were. So, if I were psychoanalyzing this person, I would say this person is probably a thoughtful, emotionally serious, interpretive, highly invested bond former who becomes especially vulnerable when early intensity appears before structure. So, the intensity of the beginning of the relationship causes this person to see structure before the structure of a relationship is actually there. So they're the person who would almost infer first that they were in a relationship before they're actually in a relationship, because everything one plus, 1 plus 1 is 2, right? Unless you're Terrence Howard, of course. um, because they naturally convert charged moments into relational meaning, right? They extrapolate things. They are probably good at guessing. They're probably not so good at figuring things out, but they're probably very good at guessing. Headbands and Jeopardy. They're probably better than the average person at those things. And you see, once ambiguity enters, they do not detach cleanly. They investigate, they replay, they over-explain, they over-invest. If shame enters the bond, they become even more vulnerable, because now the relationship is no longer just about connection. It's about restoring confidence and rescuing dignity. The subject is also likely vulnerable to intermittent hope. A fully cold person might have been easier to leave. A fully loving person would have been easier to trust. But a half warm, half evasive person is the worst possible match for this person's psychology. And that's why I've decided to call this a match made in hell. Because it keeps the subject alternating between insight and hope, insight and hope, insight and hope. They can see the pattern, and still they can see what's happening to them and still crave the exception. Do you understand? They see it destroying them, and they still crave the exception for whatever reason. They still want to give it a bly, give it a try. Where do you go? Don't you need my love, baby? Why don't you come over and let us play? Think about it. Give me a try. 'Cause I know things, it would be great. That's their type of song. You ever heard of that song? Let me stop for a second. Let me just get it all interesting for a second. Listen, I know that I'm not going to pull in the many, 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 many people out there to this podcast, so I might as well keep it niche, right? It's this song by Sizzla Kalonji. And the song is called Give Me a Try. And I'm just gonna kick off. So I don't have music behind me, so it ain't gonna sound all that. But listen, it goes like this. Where do you go? Don't you need my love, baby? Why can't you come on and let us play? When are you going to come my way? What sort of things they've been telling you? I've got to keep them from compelling you, girl. They just won't stop me from getting you. I. It goes like that. Then it goes high. Give me a try, cause this would be great. Free your mind, don't deny. True love never dies, it only creates. I'm gonna take you right there. Anyway, we don't know for sure. And I hopefully I didn't blast your ears just now. You had to turn it down. But you see, for this person, it makes a wonderful love song. But this person's like their personality splits almost. Like I don't even know if that's what that movie is all about, but maybe it is. You see, part of them knows the truth. Part of them knows that they're still bargaining with memory. And that is why the script feels so psychologically convincing. The subject is not simply gullible. The subject is cognitively split by mixed evidence. Their rationale mind is reading pattern. This is what's happening to you. Are you an idiot? The other side, their emotional mind is defending the early moments, saying their pride is trying to recover from humiliation. Their attachment system is still waiting for coherence. All four are pulling in four different directions. So nothing is working properly. This is a broken person. If I reduce it to one sentence, or them, I should say, or me, then it would be a person whose longing is being kept alive less by love itself and more by unresolved contradiction or disrespect, injured dignity, and a mind that cannot easily leave emotional mysteries unsolved. Unsolved Mysteries is probably not their favorite show because they need things tied up in a bow. They don't expect every movie to be Disney, but in their heart of hearts, they'd probably appreciate it a lot more at the end of the day. Although they might not ever say it, but they might have created a narrative in their own head, or like the alternate endings of a ambiguously crazy movie. That is the center. There is also likely vulnerability to idealized reconstruction. Not total fantasy, as I said, Disney, but selective inflation of the early stage. This person was probably bullied. This person probably endured a lot of torture as a young person, in one way or the other, but most likely emotional for sure. The subject, this person, probably knows there were many flaws in the other person, the vague person. They probably knew that there was many flaws. They probably even knew that early on. Maybe even more than enough to disqualify the bond in the first place, yet still grants unusual weight to certain charged moments. They're like, it was so amazing there that I gotta get more. It's like a drug. That means they do not bond to the whole pattern. what they do is they bond to the peak parts, and it's almost like they close their eyes to the bad parts, the bad attitude, the bad behavior, the lying, the dishonesty. And then they try to explain away the rest. That is one reason they stay too long, because they're feeding themselves a story. They're drinking the purple punch, the purple Kool-Aid. This person also likely has a strong need for verbal and structural closeness than the other person. When closure is denied, I mean, they just want to end it even. They'll be satisfied if you at least end them. If you tell them they're an idiot and you never want to talk to them again, they'll be so happy. But you, the other person, refuse to do that, the vague person. They do not just feel sad, though. They feel mentally occupied. It becomes unfinished business for this person, this over-invested person, the more invested person. That unfinishedness can resemble obsession from the outside, but internally it is closer to compelled pattern completion. They need the story to make sense before they can release it. Hopefully this is doing that for you guys. Hopefully. And that's why the accusation of being obsessed hurts so much. It misnames the wound. The subject is not just fixated on the person, they are fixated on resolving a contradiction that damaged their self-concept. So in other words, maybe before they met this person, they were riding high on the type of person they were. And somehow this person encouraged them into this state of smashing all their self-confidence. And more than being with that person, they're trying to get their self-respect back. Maybe, if you're a person for looks, maybe the person isn't even that good looking. As a matter of fact, as things are broken up, you probably try to rationally talk the other person down. Well, they got a fat face, or they got bad skin, or they're bow-legged, or they're short, or why are their hands so small? Why are their feet so big? Or like little things you try to, and you're not saying these things outside. You're not saying them to a person. You're literally, you maybe even overcompensating the person's probably mediocre attributes. You try to turn them into flaws. You're trying to convince your emotional side to accept that person, for whatever reason, or the reasons that I've already named, is not such a good person. So the deepest psychoanalytical read of this is, this person likely entered the connection with a real hunger, not only for romance, but for confirmation. Confirmation of what? Confirmation that they still had power, still had value, still had some desirability, still had significance in society, because for whatever reason, their significance is tied to their relationships. And because this person probably doesn't have too many relationships, that means each relationship is worth a lot more than to the average person who has a lot of friends. And emotional effect, once the connection became embodied and then unstable, the loss no longer meant merely I lost someone. It started meaning maybe I am less than I thought. Less wanted than I thought. Less impactful than I thought. Sorry. From there, attachment becomes fused with narcissistic injury in the ordinary human sense, not the diagnostic insult sense. They want the person back partly because they want the self back, that self back that they remembered probably just before they met the vague person. That is why this kind of bond can feel addictive. Not because the other person is magical, because the subject's identity got entangled with the unresolved outcome. My highest, I guess, probably summary of this is a psychologically serious, emotionally interpretive person with high sensitivity to ambiguity, high need for coherent meaning, and a tendency to overinvest once intimacy seems to confirm possibility. This is why people will tell you, and the Bible tells you, not to have sex outside of wedlock. Now, we know that marriage is not guaranteed, but there is a contract with each other, with the people at the wedding, and ultimately with God. And that's why, people frivolously break up regular relationships, but it takes a little effort to end a marriage. So when you've had one or two or three, it's not such a good thing. That's why hopefully you're saved and you will understand that Christ died for your sins, because that's a lot. In many different ways, that's a lot. Even just one is a lot for a person like this, when you look at why and what happened and what you assigned yourself to each time you've broken something like that. And that's why sex before marriage causes this type of problem, especially to a person who overinvests or invests more. When clarity is withheld, they do not simply mourn. They can't get things clear at the end. They don't just simply mourn the relationship or the person. They become trapped in a cycle of replay. And Lord help you if you broke up with this person and sat there watching videos of your relationship in any way, shape, or form. Because every time you rewatched something and it was a high in some way, shape, or form, especially if it was, what's it called? You know what I'm thinking of. Anyhow, when clarity is withheld, they do not simply mourn. They become trapped in the cycle of replay, shame, repair, and hope. Trapped in it. Replay, shame, repair, hope. What looks like obsession is more like unresolved attachment, plus wounded dignity, plus a mind that cannot easily abandon an emotionally significant contradiction. Wounded dignity, unresolved attachment. Any guys, anyway, guys, until the next one, this is MCM signing off for You Probably Right. Got one more to go. Hey, come check out You Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 ducks. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.